I sat down next to the new kid. Everyone was avoiding at lunch. I had no idea that one small act of kindness was about to drag me into a 2-year police investigation that would change both of our lives forever. The cafeteria at Riverside High smelled like industrial bleach and reheated pizza, same as every other Tuesday in October. I was carrying my tray, soggy French fries, a Gatorade, a slice of something that was technically pepperoni, when I saw him. He was sitting at the end of the third table from the left, the one closest to the emergency exit door that nobody ever used. And around him, in a cafeteria with maybe 300 students crammed shoulder to shoulder, there was a perfect ring of empty seats. Not 1 or 2, 8, maybe 10. Like someone had drawn a circle around him in chalk and told everyone else to stay outside it. I stood there for a second, holding my tray, watching. Nobody was actively pointing at him or laughing. It was worse than that. They were pretending he didn't exist. Eyes tracked everywhere else in the room, to phones, to friends, to the ceiling, anywhere except the kid sitting alone by the emergency door. His name, I would learn in about 4 minutes, was Alex Chen. He was 16. He transferred to Riverside on a Monday, which is already a brutal way to enter a new school. He was wearing a dark green hoodie, had his backpack on the seat beside him like he was saving it for someone, and he was staring at his phone with the particular focused intensity of a person who is desperately trying to look busy so nobody notices how alone they are. I recognized it immediately. The posture, the performance. I'd done exactly that in 7th grade. 3 months of eating alone in the corner of a different cafeteria in a different city after my family moved from Clearwater to Tampa following my dad's job transfer. 3 months of being the new kid nobody picked. I remembered every one of those lunches with a precision I couldn't apply to most of my actual memories. The way you become hyper-aware of ambient noise when you're sitting alone. The way you eat faster than you need to, so you can leave faster than you need to. I picked up my tray and walked over to his table. I set it down across from him. He looked up. His expression wasn't grateful. It was suspicious. The look of someone who has already learned through recent experience that unexpected kindness usually comes with a catch. "Why are you sitting here?" he asked. "Because everyone's being weird about it, and I don't get why." He looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked back down at his phone, but his shoulders dropped about half an inch. That was enough. "I'm Michael," I said. "I know," he said. "You're in my AP English class. You remember that?" "I remember everything," he said. Not bragging, just stating a fact. I ate my soggy fries. He ate his lunch. We didn't have a profound conversation. We talked about the English assignment due Thursday, and whether the vending machine by the gym actually worked or was just there as a monument to disappointment. It was ordinary, completely ordinary. And I didn't think about it again until Monday morning, when Derek pulled me aside by the science wing lockers and told me I needed to stop. Derek Okafor had been my best friend since freshman year. We'd been in the same homeroom, played JV soccer together, spent more Saturday afternoons at each other's houses than I could count. He was a good person. I genuinely believe that. Maybe that's the part of this story I've had the hardest time making sense of. "You need to stay away from Chen," he said. He was using his serious voice, the one he used when he meant it. "Why? He seems fine." "He's not fine. He's bad news. His old school, there was stuff that happened. Everyone knows." "Everyone knows what, specifically?" Derek's mouth opened and then closed. "Just trust me, okay? Stay away from him." I pressed. He deflected. I pressed again. He shrugged and said he'd heard things, that there were incidents, that Alex had a history of being, and Derek actually used this word, dangerous. I went home that night and tried to think of what dangerous could possibly mean about a 16-year-old kid in a green hoodie who ate lunch alone and remembered which class we shared. Nothing about it computed, but I also trusted Derek, and so for a couple of days, I let it sit there in the back of my mind like an unanswered question. Then the notes started. The first one was in my locker on Wednesday. A folded piece of notebook paper. No signature. Just 5 words. "Stay away from Chen. Seriously." I showed it to Derek. He said he didn't know who'd sent it. His face said otherwise. The second note came Thursday. Same format. Different handwriting. "You're making a mistake. Everyone's watching." I didn't tell anyone about that one. I just folded it up and put it in my backpack. Friday morning, I came to school and found my locker. Someone had spray painted Chen across the face of it in black paint overnight. Not a threat. Not a slur. Just the name. Like a warning. Like they were branding me with his association. I stood there looking at it for a full minute before the bell rang. I kept sitting with Alex. What I didn't understand yet, what I was about 3 weeks away from understanding completely, was the architecture of what had already been built before Alex Chen ever walked through Riverside's front door. Brad Sutherland was a junior, not popular in any meaningful way, but influential in the specific social economy of a school like Riverside, where influence was less about charisma and more about information, and who controlled what you knew. Brad wasn't particularly smart or athletic or funny, but he was strategic. He'd grown up figuring out that the easiest way to keep people's attention was to give them something to be against, a common enemy, a threat. Brad's cousin went to Eastbrook Academy, which was the school Alex had transferred from. Brad's cousin had seen what happened there. He'd told Brad, and Brad had decided, before Alex ever arrived, to use it. He started 2 weeks before Alex's first day. Whisper campaign. Nothing you could trace, just questions. "You hear about the new kid transferring from Eastbrook? You know what happened over there?" He didn't even have to fabricate most of it. He just inverted it, rearranged it, turned the true story into its own own reflection. By the time Alex Chen set foot on Riverside's campus, roughly 80% of the student body had already been told some version of the story. A story in which Alex was the aggressor, in which he'd gone after a group of innocent kids, in which his transfer wasn't a fresh start. It was an expulsion in disguise. Derek knew this. Nathan Park knew this. Owen Reyes, who I'd known since 8th grade, knew this. All three of them had been told the real shape of it by Brad directly, at some point in the weeks before school started. And all three of them had chosen, whether out of loyalty or cowardice or social survival instinct, to go along with it. What actually happened at Eastbrook Academy was this. Alex Chen had been bullied for 8 months, not casually, systematically. A group of 7 students who had decided, for reasons that were never fully explained and probably didn't require much explanation, to make his life a specific kind of hell. They'd cornered him physically twice, destroyed his property, stolen and posted personal photographs, sent him messages on every platform they could find. It escalated past what a school administration was willing to handle quietly, and Alex, with the support of his mother Lin Chen, who worked double shifts as a nurse and had no patience for institutional hedging, had gone to the district, and then to the police, and then testified, by name, on record. 6 students at Eastbrook had been expelled. 2 had faced juvenile charges, and somewhere between Eastbrook and Riverside, the story had been picked up and turned inside out, and Alex Chen had become the dangerous one, the snitch, the kid who ruined lives, the threat. I found this out from Alex himself on a Thursday afternoon about 3 weeks into my sitting with him at lunch. We were in the school library, ostensibly working on a group English project, just the 2 of us because everyone else had maneuvered their way out of being grouped with him. He told it flatly, without drama, like he'd already said it so many times in his own head that the emotion had been processed out of it, and what remained was just the sequence of events. "You're not surprised," I said when he finished, "that you sat with me? No. You looked like someone who'd done the math. I meant about the story following you here." He shrugged. "My mom said it might. She said some things follow people like shadows. She was right." I went home that night and thought about Brad Sutherland, about Derek, about Nathan and Owen and all the people who'd refused to tell me what they actually knew, hiding behind vague warnings and secondhand danger. I thought about the spray paint on my locker and the friends who'd stopped saving me a seat and the notes that told me I was making a mistake. I was angry, the specific, clean kind of angry that comes when you understand exactly what's happening and who's responsible. But I didn't do anything with it yet. I told myself I would. I told myself I'd confront Derek, tell a teacher, do something official. I set that intention, and then I kept moving through my days, and I didn't follow through on it. And that is the part of this story I have thought about more than any other part. I had 3 weeks. I didn't use them right. The day everything changed was a Wednesday in November, cold enough that there'd been frost on the car windows that morning. I was at lunch. Alex wasn't. He was always there before me. He left class faster than most people because he'd figured out the exact hallway route that minimized contact. He was always at the table, green hoodie, backpack on the seat beside him, phone out. Always. So when I got there and the table was empty, I noticed immediately. I sat down, waited 5 minutes, texted him, no response. I asked around, quietly, whether anyone had seen him. Blank looks. I checked with a kid in his 3rd period calc class. He was marked present, the kid said, but I didn't actually see him. Present on the sheet, but not in the room. I've thought about what that means since. Someone signed him in, or the teacher was distracted, or both. I drove to his apartment after school. It was a building off Miller Avenue, 12 minutes from campus. The kind of complex with a parking lot that never quite got repaved, and a row of mailboxes with missing numbers. His mom answered in scrubs. She worked at Riverside General, swing shift, and her face when she saw me told me everything before she said a word. "He hasn't come home," she said. "I thought he was with you." She handed me her phone. She'd already been scrolling through it with shaking hands, trying to make sense of something. The text messages were from anonymous numbers. 1 dozen, 2 dozen, more. I stood in her doorway reading them and felt something cold move through my chest. "Kill yourself, Chen. Nobody wants you here. You should have died at your old school. We're going to finish what they started. Tonight." That last one was time-stamped 9:47 a.m., 3rd period, the window when he'd disappeared. I told Lin Chen to call 911. She was already reaching for her phone. I stood in the parking lot and called Derek. "Where is he?" I said. "What did Brad do?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Derek." I said his name slowly. "Where is Alex Chen right now?" A pause, long enough to be its own kind of answer. "I told you to stay away from him, Michael. This isn't my problem." He hung up. The police showed up at Lin Chen's apartment 18 minutes after she called. 2 officers first, then Detective Aaron Foster, who was 43 years old, wore a gray jacket over a blue shirt and had the specific manner of someone who has seen enough bad outcomes to treat every unresolved situation as an emergency until proven otherwise. He asked me questions for 20 minutes in the parking lot. I told him everything I knew. The notes, the spray paint, Brad Sutherland's name, Derek's non-answers, the texts on Lin Chen's phone. He didn't write most of it down. He just listened. They found Alex at 11:43 that night. Abandoned building, 6 blocks from campus. A condemned 3-story structure that had been a machine parts warehouse in the 1980s and had been sitting empty ever since, slowly collapsing into itself. He was on the ground floor. He'd been there since approximately 10:15 in the morning. Fractured ribs, concussion, hypothermia setting in. The temperature that night had dropped to 31 degrees. The doctor who treated him told Lin Chen that another 3 hours would have changed the outcome significantly. He said it the careful, clinical way doctors say things when they mean he might have died. I sat in my car in the school parking lot at 12:30 a.m. after getting Lin Chen's text with the update. I sat there for a long time. I thought about Alex saying, "I remember everything" on that first Tuesday. I thought about him eating faster than he needed to. I thought about 8 hours on a cold concrete floor in a condemned building, while 300 people who knew him went through their Wednesday afternoon like everything was fine. Detective Foster knocked on my car window. I hadn't seen him pull up. He was calm, direct. He told me they'd found Alex. He told me the injuries. He told me they were going to build a case, and they needed someone on the inside of the social network that had organized this. "I'm not a cop," I said. "No," he said. "You're a kid who knows these people and who they trust enough to talk to." He drove me home. He came inside. He sat down at my kitchen table with my parents, my mom, Sandra, and my dad, Gary, who'd gotten up in his Riverside University sweatshirt and looked at Detective Foster with the expression of a man who understood that something serious had arrived at his door, and he explained what he was asking. A recording device, under my shirt, back to school in the morning. Talk to Derek, Nathan, Brad's orbit. Don't accuse, don't push, just let them talk. My mom said no. She said it clearly and immediately, gripping my arm across the table. "He is 17 years old. You cannot send a 17-year-old in wired." "Sandra," my dad started. "No." Detective Foster said he understood. He said it was completely voluntary. He said if I said no, they'd proceed by other means, and it would take longer, and some people might not be charged who should be. He didn't say it as a threat. He said it as information. I thought about the warehouse. 6 blocks from campus. 31 degrees. 8 hours. "I'll do it," I said. My mom didn't let go of my arm, but she didn't say anything else. They came at 6 the next morning. 2 officers and Foster. My mom made them all coffee and stood at the kitchen counter with her arms crossed and watched them tape a microphone under my shirt with an expression I have never forgotten. The face of a person doing the hardest kind of love, which is letting someone you die for walk towards something dangerous because you know they've already decided. I've thought about her face that morning more times than I can count. The transmitter was small, smaller than I expected. It fed signal to a van parked on Elm Street outside the school, where Foster and another detective named Reyes would sit and listen in real time. Foster's instructions, last given in my driveway with his hands in his jacket pockets, were 4 sentences. Don't push, don't accuse, don't lead them toward anything, just let them talk. I walked through Riverside's front doors at 7:52 a.m. The hallway smelled exactly the same as always. Lockers slamming. Someone's Bluetooth speaker bleeding rap lyrics through a backpack. Completely ordinary. My heart was doing something irregular in my chest that I tried not to focus on. I went to first period, kept my head down. Second period, same. Third period I had free, and I used it to walk the halls and watch the specific social geography of Riverside that I'd been navigating for 2 years, looking at it now differently. The clusters, the tables, the hierarchy of who stood where and who acknowledged whom. I could see Brad Sutherland's architecture in it now, the deliberate engineering of it. Lunch came, I picked up my tray, I walked to Derek's table, the table where I used to sit every single day before I started sitting with Alex. He looked up when I put my tray down. His expression went through 3 things very fast: surprise, wariness, and then a cautious neutrality that told me he'd already had a conversation this morning about how to handle me. "What are you doing here?" he said. "Thought we should talk." I sat down. Nathan was 2 seats down. Owen wasn't there. "About Alex. About what happened last night. He got jumped," Derek said. "That's nothing to do with us." I didn't say it was. "Then why are you looking at me like that?" I kept my voice even. "Because when I texted you last night asking where he was, you already knew something. I could hear it." Derek's jaw tightened. He looked down at his lunch tray. Nathan had gone very still. "We don't know anything about what happened to him," Nathan said, not looking at me. "I'm not asking what happened to him," I said. "I already know what happened to him. I'm asking what you knew before it happened." Silence. Long and particular. The kind that isn't empty. Derek moved his fork around his tray. He looked up once at Nathan and then back down. "We didn't plan that," Derek said quietly. "Whatever you think, I don't think anything. I'm asking." Another long silence. Then Derek said something, and his voice had dropped low enough that the words came out like a confession that had been waiting somewhere for weeks, just looking for an exit. "Brad said he wanted to scare him into transferring. That was the whole thing. We said we'd help. We sent some of the texts, not the bad ones, just the earlier ones. We helped set up a distraction in the hallway so Brad could get him out of third period. We didn't know he was going to bring people. We didn't know they were going to take him somewhere. We thought he'd just be scared and he'd call his mom and she'd pull him out of school." He paused. His voice cracked. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. He looked up at me. His eyes were sharp suddenly. He'd heard himself. He'd heard what he'd said. "You're trying to get me to confess to something," he said. He stood up. He picked up his tray. He walked away without looking back. Nathan followed him without a word. I sat at the table alone and ate 3 French fries. My hands were steady, which surprised me. Under my shirt, the transmitter was still warm. In the van on Elm Street, Detective Foster pressed his headphones headphones against his ears and reached for his radio. 6 arrests were made within 72 hours. Brad Sutherland was charged with assault causing bodily harm and conspiracy to commit assault, which, given Alex's injuries and the hypothermia, prosecutors would later push to attempted murder. They made that charge stick. Derek, Nathan, and Owen, who'd been picked up separately and had immediately begun talking over each other in the interrogation room, were charged with criminal conspiracy. 2 other students who'd participated in luring Alex out of third period faced charges as accessories. The school held an emergency assembly. Principal Dawson gave a speech about community values. I sat in the gymnasium bleachers and stared at the exit sign above the door and thought about how most of the people in that room had seen Alex sitting alone every day and done nothing, and now they were nodding solemnly at words like accountability and belonging. The trials, because there were multiple juvenile court and otherwise, took most of sophomore and junior year. I testified twice. Once in Brad's case, where his defense attorney spent 40 minutes suggesting that I'd entrapped Derek into saying something that didn't reflect the reality of his involvement. The judge did not find this compelling. Once in a hearing about the phone records, where I identified the timing of texts I'd personally received. Lin Chen testified 3 times. She was composed every time in a way that I understood was costing her enormously. Brad Sutherland was sentenced to 26 months in a juvenile facility. He was 17 at the time of sentencing. His parents hired 2 lawyers and a PR firm. The PR firm actually issued a statement. I read it on my phone in the school parking lot and had to put my phone away. Derek's family hired their own attorney and negotiated a plea arrangement. 120 hours of community service, 18 months of probation, mandatory counseling. Owen and Nathan received similar sentences. Owen's parents called my parents the week after sentencing. My dad talked to Owen's dad for a long time. I don't know what was said. My dad came back inside and sat at the kitchen table and didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "Some of this is going to be hard for a long time." He meant the friendships, the history, the version of our neighborhood where all of that was intact. He was right. Lin Chen moved Alex out of Riverside about 2 months after the incident. She'd been granted a transfer and she took it. He finished sophomore year at North Point Academy, 20 minutes across town. I saw him once during that period, at a diner on Columbus Street. He was with his mom. He waved. I waved back. We didn't talk, and I understood that was probably okay. That some connections do their work in the moment they're needed and don't require maintenance to matter. I missed Derek. That's the honest thing. I missed Derek for a long time. Not the Derek who'd sent those early texts and stood in the hallway while his friend was dragged out of third period and told me on the phone that it wasn't his problem. I missed the Derek from 200 Saturday afternoons. The one who'd driven me to soccer practice when my bike got a flat. Who'd sat with me the night my grandfather died and watched bad TV and didn't make me talk about it. That Derek was real. And that Derek had also done what he'd done. Both things were true, and I never found a clean way to hold them. I didn't talk to him again until the summer before senior year. We were at the same 4th of July gathering at a mutual friend's house, something neither of us had planned or anticipated. We ended up standing near the same cooler. He said my name, I said his. We stood there for a moment. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it, for what I knew and didn't tell you, for what I did." "I know," I said. "Are we?" He started. "I don't know," I said. "Honestly, we haven't talked since. I don't know if we will. Some things get broken in a way that isn't irreversible, but requires more energy to repair than either party currently has. Maybe someday. I genuinely don't know." The sealed envelope from Principal Dawson, the one he'd handed me 3 weeks after the arrests, the one with the commendation letter from the district attorney and the police reports, also contained something I hadn't expected: a business card and a meeting. The woman in the business suit sitting across from me in Dawson's office was Margaret Holloway, the chief prosecutor for juvenile crimes in the county. She was 52 years old, precise in her speech, and looked at me with the specific attention of someone evaluating something carefully before making a decision. She told me that over the course of the investigation, my cooperation had been noted at every level. She said the recording I'd provided had been instrumental in establishing the conspiracy charge. She said that cases involving coordinated juvenile harassment, particularly those that escalated to physical violence, were difficult to prosecute precisely because the social networks that facilitated them were so diffuse and so reliant on unspoken understanding. My ability to operate inside that network, to understand its grammar, had made a material difference. Then she said that her office had a small internship program for high school juniors interested in the legal field, and that if I was interested, she would personally sponsor my application. I looked at her for a moment, then I looked at Principal Dawson, who gave me nothing in the way of expression. "I'm interested," I said. I spent most of junior year sitting in the county prosecutor's office 2 afternoons a week, running case intake logs and watching depositions through one-way glass and learning more about the machinery of the legal system than I'd ever expected to know at 17. Margaret Holloway explained things to me as if I were already a colleague, which I understood was the highest compliment she knew how to pay. She said once in the hallway outside a courtroom, "The law is mostly about documentation. Whoever documents their version first and most completely usually wins." I wrote that down. I'm 18 now. I start at Whitmore University in the fall. Pre-law. My mother cried when I got in. My father drove us all out for dinner at Giovanni's, the Italian place on 5th that we only go to for real occasions, and let me order the pasta that costs $32, which for him was the equivalent of a standing ovation. Alex Chen is at North Point Academy, finishing junior year. He runs cross-country. He's on the debate team. He's applying to colleges. I know this because we follow each other on Instagram, which is a strange and modern way to know that someone you once sat with at a cafeteria table is all right, but I'll take it. He posted a photo last month of his race bib from a county meet. He placed 4th. The caption said, "Still here." I have thought about that caption more than he probably intended. The cafeteria at Riverside High smelled like bleach and reheated pizza. I picked up a tray of soggy fries and sat down across from a kid in a green hoodie because I remembered what it felt like to be the one nobody sat with. I didn't do it because I was brave. I didn't do it because I had some intuition about what it would set in motion. I did it because the math was obvious and the empty seats were cruel, and I had a tray in my hands and nowhere pressing to be. 2 years later, I am someone different than I was. I know how cases are built. I know how social cruelty organizes itself. I know how silence functions as participation. I know what it cost Lin Chen to compose herself on a witness stand. I know what my mother's face looks like when she is afraid for me and choosing to trust me anyway. I know that the people we think we know most completely are capable of things that don't fit inside the version of them we've been carrying. I also know this. I should have gone to a teacher sooner. I should have pushed harder when the notes started. I had 3 weeks of knowing something was wrong, and I used those weeks to be angry and stubborn instead of useful. That failure is mine. I've sat with it. I'll keep sitting with it. Some things happened because of a simple decision made on a Tuesday with a cafeteria tray in my hands. Some things happened because I didn't make the next decisions fast enough. Both of those truths live in this story. I'm not asking you to resolve them. I can't fully resolve them myself. What I know is that Alex Chen placed 4th at a county cross-country meet, that he captioned a photo, "Still here," that when I saw it on my phone on a Thursday evening in March, I sat alone in my room for a long moment and felt something I didn't have a clean word for. Relief, maybe, and grief, and something quieter than either of those things. Gratitude, maybe, that certain decisions, made without calculation, without heroism, without anything except the memory of what it felt like to be alone at a lunch table, that those decisions sometimes land somewhere that matters. I sat down. He's still here. That has to be enough, and mostly it is.